Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on Superman and Lois Season 2. So yeah, Superman and Lois Season 2 has finally kicked off with a strong premiere that for the most part really dealt with the fallout from the end of last season and the issues around that, while also planting a good amount of seeds for what is to play out in at least the near future for this season. Now, of course, we met the new face of the DoD for the show, replacing General Lane, that of course being Lieutenant Mitch Anderson, who was using students from the metahuman school that was brought up in season 1 in order to do what he would want Superman to do for them, really. You know, them being for the United States government. So, of course, that is going to be an issue you would have to think, but of course, throughout the episode, there was this big earthquake in Smallville that just caught everyone, including Superman, off guard. And right at the end of the episode, the last thing we see, we actually find out what is causing all this, or should I say, who is causing this. And that individual is, of course, that of Doomsday. Yes, Doomsday, they're doing him this season. Now, of course, this wasn't made clear in the episode that this is Doomsday. It's really just comic readers that probably would have picked it out, or maybe people just guessing villains, maybe. But the showrunner for Superman and Lois, that being Todd Helbing, did confirm that that was in fact Doomsday at the end of the episode, and that we will get another tease at him in episode 2 with a full reveal coming in episode 3. He actually said that. So at least we know they aren't going to drag out that reveal on the show. We have a time frame as to when it all happens, and I can't wait. But the big question with the introduction of Doomsday onto the show is, well, the obvious one. That, of course, being, are they really about to do the Death of Superman arc on the show? And while I don't think the answer is a straight up yes, there are elements already set up on the show that could lead into that, or a loose adaptation at the very least of that storyline that may or may not actually include a point in which Superman dies. Even though he actually, comes back in that storyline, but he does die. So I thought in this video I would go over in a sort of like a summarized format to keep it a bit shorter, the story from Death of Superman, which includes the lead up from Doomsday or with Doomsday as well as what has already been set up on the show in season 1 and season 2 that could, influence the story and how they could make it play out in the show. Because I would actually prefer if they do have some flexibility with it, with like all this, rather than just go for a straight up adaptation of the storyline. Like we have the comic itself, and there's 2 animated movies around this storyline. I think they've done enough just retelling, so have some flexibility and imagination around this. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your general thoughts, theories, and everything like that around what we go over and whether you would change certain things that I put in here. Very curious to hear what everyone has to say about it because it's such a big thing. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you're looking forward to any of this, why not drop a like on the video to show your support and show your excitement. So first up, let's just flash back to season 1 quickly because that is where the setup for all this really started. And that was with the introduction of 3 potential key players. Those being John Henry Irons, aka Steel, Jordan Kent, aka Superboy, and of course Morgan Edge or Tal-Rho, aka the Eradicator. These of course fitting 3 of the 4 roles of the Supermen that rise up after the death of Superman in the comics. Now, of course, in regards to Morgan Edge, he was defeated last season, but, and this is very important, not killed. And we are led to believe he is showing up again this season in guest roles. And it wouldn't surprise me too much if we see him fairly early on into this season. And maybe he is someone who Clark or Superman goes to in regards to these visions he's having, because maybe he thinks that Morgan might be having them as well. And also, Morgan may have knowledge on what Doomsday is, or maybe heard stories about it. Because it's important to remember he didn't come to Earth as a baby. He actually lived a few years on Krypton, so it might be like folklore, like scary kid stories or something like that. That's just a prediction at the very least. That's for us to see if it plays out. So if Superman were to die at the hands and claws, I guess, of Doomsday, it's logical that John Henry, aka Steel, his now friend, Jordan, aka Superboy, his son, and maybe Morgan would be used to fill that void. However, I think there is another avenue the show could go down that doesn't have Morgan out in the field, but has a force that goes against Superman's morals and ideals that Steel and Superboy would have to fit into, but we will get into that group soon. But in regards to Doomsday, what will his story be? Well, if we are going to go off the introduction to him that we got at the end of the season 2 premiere, it appears they are going to give him a very comic accurate origin at the very least. But what is that origin? Well, as I said earlier, I will try and keep it as simple as possible, but Doomsday was created after an alien scientist sort of wanted to create the ultimate life form. So he sent a baby to what was Krypton many years before it became like civilized, and it was just very dangerous. So as you would expect, the baby was killed quite quickly by the creatures that inhabited that, Krypton, or that prehistoric Krypton, whatever you want to call it. But what the alien scientist, whose name was Bertrand, did was repeat this process by collecting the remains left after the baby was killed, and through accelerated evolution and all that jazz, it would become stronger each time and vulnerable to more and more each life cycle, pretty much vulnerable to what killed it. Eventually, Doomsday escaped, what was Krypton, and visited many planets to go on killing sprees on all of them, even running across Darkseid and almost killing him. But eventually, Doomsday landed on Calaton and was defeated and shot into space after being covered and tied up in a certain outfit, which then led him to Earth, where he landed with such great force and power, like a comet coming down to the Earth, that he was driven deep, deep under the ground. And though he was dead, as we know, he was going to come back alive and evolve even more. And as we saw at the end of episode 1 of season 2, he is alive, he is awake, and he's climbing on up to the Earth's surface. So when he emerges, he should look something like this, covered, mostly from head to toe, and sort of like the show's take on what he'd be dressed up as, because that was done in the early, was it late 80s, early 90s for the death of, I think it was early 90s for Death of Superman. So a bit of an updated look. Now, in the comics, when Doomsday first emerged onto the Earth's surface, he actually faced the Justice League, but Doomsday as a killing machine was attracted to larger populations, which meant larger cities. And when Superman faced him, there really wasn't much that Superman could do and what could be done. And Superman knew that Doomsday wasn't going to stop what he was doing and had to be put down to the point in which Superman and Doomsday actually deliver fatal shots at each other at the same time, both dying, both killing each other. Now, you might be wondering, well, hold on, wouldn't Doomsday just come back to life? Yeah, he would. He just doesn't come back to life straight away. So he was actually deported from Earth, if you want to call it, via being shot into space, deep space, far away from Earth. Now, of course, Superman does come back to life, but I think I would be very surprised if we saw straight up adaptations of what happens then. I think the closest you'll get to an adaptation on the show, in regards to similarities to the comics, would be the lead up to Superman dying rather than the aftermath. But speaking of the aftermath, if Superman is to die this season due to a battle against Doomsday, what are the after effects? What is the aftermath? Well, I think we would see the two characters of John Henry and Jordan, or Steel and Superboy, step up to fill the void of no Superman, and there being no Superman for how many episodes it is. And while you still have two other Supermen from the comics that rise up during this time in the form of the Eradicator and Cyborg Superman, I could see them going a different direction, at least with one. Now, I think they could still do Cyborg Superman, and my reasoning for that is just the fact that if Superman is dead, what would Tyler Hoechlin do, the actor that plays Clark or Superman? I'm not 100% sure if they would just not use him, especially if it's for even more than 2 episodes. And Cyborg Superman is meant to look like Superman, so they could do that, I guess. And yes, Supergirl used like the Hank Henshaw Cyborg Superman thing earlier on into their show, but that was pre-Crisis and was on a different Earth before Crisis happened, so I guess that would be the explanation if they use it on Superman and Lois as well. But in regards to the Eradicator, we had that in season 1 with Morgan Edge, and I don't think you could do that again, at least with Morgan. So I have a theory as to what they could do with another character. So we had the introduction of Lieutenant Mitch Anderson in the season 2 premiere, heading up the DoD and also tapping into that metahuman school from last season, with us meeting 2 of the students from there. But in the comics, Mitch Anderson was actually a witness as a young boy, or a spectator, if you want to call it, as a young boy to the fight between Doomsday and Superman, with Superman actually having to save his family whilst also fighting Doomsday. But maybe they could do something where this happened in the past, and maybe like a young Mitch Anderson on the show, not in the comics, on the show, looked up to and loved Superman, but maybe there was an incident in which Superman was elsewhere in the world, like in North Korea, like we saw in episode 1, or even somewhere in Europe or something like that, and just wasn't in America, wasn't looking over America at that point, wasn't protecting it. And maybe something happened in America that caused something bad to happen to someone in his family, or put them at risk where they were so close to death, and if Superman was there, there wouldn't have been any major danger. So it doesn't mean someone dies. They could go down that route, and maybe like his dad or his mum or his sister or a family member or a friend died, something like that. But I don't think it's necessary. I don't know if you want to make it that, like, Mitch Anderson thinks that Superman let someone die. So maybe they just make it that, like, Superman there wasn't to protect someone, and that person was very lucky. And if Superman was just looking over America completely, like, full time, not worrying about the rest of the world, then, there would be less danger, if you want to call it. And that would put some backing into him questioning Superman's allegiance to America, like we saw in the premiere. And of course, he starts up that group with those students, the Superman of America, which ties into the comics as well. So in the comics, the Superman of America are a group formed by Lex Luthor of all people, and of course that's not going to happen on the show, at least from the outside looking in, because Mitch Anderson seems to be the one that's formed it. But in the comics, Mitch Anderson is actually on that team, and he's actually the leader of that team, and he's otherwise known as Outburst, where he had the powers of magnokinesis, so he could sort of like control and manipulate magnetic fields. Now, he actually isn't a villain in the comics. He's actually a good guy, and felt bad about Superman dying in the comics and feeling he had some fault in his death due to forcing Superman to pull out of fighting Doomsday at a pivotal moment to help himself and his family. Just to give some more context, when Superman saves Mitch and his family, the rest of the Justice League are fighting Doomsday as a group, but Superman leaves, makes them understaffed, and sort of just it changes the trajectory of potentially what could have happened. So Mitch feels a bit of responsibility for Superman actually dying. Now on the show, I could maybe see something happen where Lieutenant Mitch Anderson also feels that remorse if Superman were to die, where maybe Superman didn't get the assistance he needed at like a pivotal moment. Maybe Superman doesn't want it, but Mitch knows he needs it from the powered people associated with the government, but just doesn't go that way. It's hard to tell exactly what path they would go down, but they have a good amount of characters associated with the death of Superman arc from the comic on the show now already, so I'm very interested to see what path they potentially take, but I just don't know. Mitch isn't a villain in the comics, so I don't know if they're going to go down this route where they make him, like that. But the final thing I actually do want to bring up in this video is actually the episode title. So we've gone over this before, like a while ago when they first came out, so I'll just quickly read them out again, but pay attention to the episode 7 title when we get to it. So episode 1, What Lies Beneath. Episode 2, The Ties That Bind. Episode 3, The Thing in the Mines. Episode 4, The Inverse Method. Episode 5, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. Episode 6, Tried and True. And then episode 7, Fallout. So it's important to remember Doomsday is present during all these episodes. Now, it's pretty rare they give a spoiler in the titles. Like, that's why you see some shows just go with like chapter 1, or like with Stargirl, they just go like something chapter 1, whatever it might be. They're trying to just give spoilers away. So the only thing I'm wondering is like, what does Fallout mean? Very curious to see if that plays into anything going on with the Doomsday stuff. And I don't know. Theorize all you want, but if Doomsday is present, you have an episode 7, in the middle of the season called Fallout, could mean many things. But yeah, with all of this, it's a wait and see. I think we might get hints as to where they might be going after Doomsday's fully revealed. So I'd assume that probably happens towards the end of episode 3. So maybe in episode 4 or 5, we get hints as to where they're potentially going. But there's just a lot of things that hint towards them heading towards an adaptation, or, just a certain take on this death of Superman story, just because of the characters that were already on the show and the characters that are being introduced this season. There's just a lot of things lining up, but yeah. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about everything we went over. I'm very curious to hear what you guys might have to say and whether you think this is actually happening. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.